Great experiences build great leaders. Great leaders build great teams. This is Building Great Sales Teams.
All right, guys, welcome back to Building Great Sales Teams. As you know, I have begun coaching for Win Rate Consulting this year, and I have the pleasure of bringing on one of their favorite clients, Mr. Jason Stanley. He's the CEO of Sundance Kitchen and Bath Exteriors. He's an expert and real estate investor, as well as he owns a golf course. That sounds like the dream. And he's an expert in leadership and automations that drive conversations. Jason, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you for having me on, Doug. It's nice to be here.
Awesome, man. Well, let's get right into it. You know, one of the things that I said in the intro is that you drive conversations through automation. So how do we drive conversations using automation without losing that connection with our customers?
So it was something that I've had set up for a while and never really dove deeper into it. We have an automation system. We deal with a company called Hatch. We've been on with them for probably about 3 years, and we use it a lot for just text communication, email communication with for appointment confirmations, follow up with customers, just in a general text platform, right? So late last year, I started investigating like what could I build out for our sales team to and Clifton was a huge like proponent and a huge like Clifton adopted Hatch early on in his company when he owned it. So having him to talk to about this was great because he's already been there and done that. So really diving deep into product specific follow-up and just building value, right? So like not making it all about the sale and the close, like, hey, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? And because that's what I used, that's what I used to think follow-up was, is like, hey, do you want to buy this? We're still here. And it's got to have some part of that in it eventually. But there's a lot of value-based content that we can send to the people. Something as simple as a thank you, like thank you for having us out and thank you for considering us to even be part of your journey. And I've been basically had those automations set up now for probably a month, and we get great responses from the customers just just out of the thank you message. Like, and originally I had that thank you message in our campaigns, and I separated it because what we were getting is we're getting a lot of replies, and it kicks them out of the campaign. They don't get any more. So it was like, all right, round one, all right, cool. We got a lot of responses. So I'm like, I broke those apart. And now I have, like if we're talking about like roofing, windows, decks, doors, I have follow-up campaigns built out for like the 2 roofing systems we do. I have for, the 3 windows that we'll carry, for our deck projects, our stamped concrete patio projects. So I have tailored follow-up for all that with just serving them value content. And then at the end, asking for the business, but why that's happening, the salespeople are also following up with them in their own way.
Right. Do you, in some of the follow-up campaigns that I've built, there's a cadence when the salesperson reaches out and when the automation reaches out. Do you have that kind of time? Is it a task in the automation software, or how does that work for you guys?
So Hatch will actually go in and enter them into a campaign. So basically, if we enter it as a demo no sale, right, in our CRM, Hatch will pick that up and say, okay, we'll enter them into that campaign. And it's basically 3 days after the appointment that it starts.
Nice.
So it's basically at day 3 after, skips a day, then day 5, then it skips 2 days, goes to day 8, and then skips 2 days and goes to day 11.
Okay.
So it is a little hard to figure out because it doesn't send on the weekends.
Mhm.
We just, I can turn it on to send on the weekends. We just haven't done that because I was afraid that somebody might not reply.
Yeah.
One of our staff wouldn't reply. At least I know during the
Oh,
week he's
yeah.
gonna reply.
That makes sense. Yeah, I never thought about that.
And then we have, so we actually have that follow-up campaign, and then it's followed up by a rehash campaign that gets triggered off of what we have Salesforce, Improve It 360, which is a Salesforce-based platform.
Mhm.
So we create a marketing op inside of that for rehash, and those guys will stagger that out to like 15 days so that if they go through the whole demo no sale campaign and we haven't got an answer and we haven't communicated with them, it'll re-engage them again into a
Okay.
rehab campaign for another 6 whatever date that they put in there.
Are you hyper focusing on the original product they were interested in? Or at some point, if they do get that product, are you entering them into cross-sell campaigns?
Yeah, so we have a matter of fact, I just got done a sales meeting this morning, and we were kind of running through that all the automations and like what's going to happen and when.
Mhm.
So basically, if they've set a marketing op for themselves to follow up for rehash, and it's went through the whole follow up campaign, the whole rehash follow up campaign, and they haven't got any answers, then they go in and make a new marketing op for 90 days out, and then we have a general marketing campaign. So we cycle every one of our customers every 90 days, no matter if, and I'm starting to filter them out actually by prospects and customers. So I'm messaging people differently now,
Okay.
um, which is
That makes sense.
it's a huge undertaking to do
Oh,
because
yeah.
like for 13 years we've done it like just massive this way.
Yeah.
But
Just
as
stay
these
on
people
top of
come,
mind.
yeah, as these people come due, I believe that your customers should be messaged a different way than people you've never done business for.
Mhm.
Like in our customer messaging, like I'm starting to put in like little cues about, hey, here's our referral program. You know, if you're a referral partner of us, here's what we'll do for you. So
Yeah.
like obviously I'm not probably going to do that to somebody that I've never worked for because like we haven't done anything for them. They're not going to refer me, you know, for the most part. Um, Same thing with like review links. Like we're putting in messaging in there for review links just to our existing customers when it goes out. So we're trying to cycle that stuff every 90 days and we're just trying to keep top of mind with people. And then of course we have the
Mhm.
our email marketing campaigns that go out. These these things in Hatch are more text messages because I've just seen I mean, I don't have a metric on it, but I've seen a way better response rate out of text message than I would out of email.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's somewhere that especially, if we don't have a email-centric business or email-centric position at work, or we can actually turn it off at 5 and turn it off on the weekends, it's just not something that we're checking, you know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so, yeah, text is always gonna get a better response rate. Well, that's encouraging to hear because there's so many home services that are just using these snapshots, and they're very simple, only assuming one thing the customer either bought or didn't, and that's it, and that's the whole campaign, you know? So, it sounds like you guys, and I always say with a sales program, it should be audited every 90 days and quarterly, and then you should be making your adjustments. And it sounds like you guys are doing the same thing with the automations. You guys are constantly retooling them and reworking them for optimization.
Well, I mean, our business used to kind of operate like that, right? It's
Mm.
like, oh yeah, they didn't buy, so like, all right, on to the next, right?
Fire or die.
Yeah, yeah, on to the next one, right?
Yeah.
The issue with that is that, you know, you already paid for their information or like you paid for that lead. You paid somewhere along the line to get that
Yeah.
customer, that prospect, right? So like I just went back to the approach of how do I lower my marketing cost? And it's I got to cycle all the people that already have their information and keep asking them if they need our help.
Yep.
I mean, and at the end of the day, like I've been steady working on this for probably 2 months, and it's crazy because I mean, you have to adjust based on the data you get back, and it's like, man, now I got to redo that. That
Yeah.
stinks, but like it's for the better. it's a lot of front end work, but like once you get it tweaked and optimized to where you want it, I can see it paying huge dividends. I mean, we're getting good responses because like here's the other thing. It sucks having your salespeople follow up with somebody that's already made a decision and they just don't want to tell you. So like we're seeing a lot of feedback, positive, like, hey, we're going to be making a decision in March, or we're going to be making a decision in a week. So
Yeah.
now we know when to follow up. Like we know when to personally pick up the phone and call. And then we got ones like, hey, we've already hired somebody, and then we have some automated responses that go back out to like, hey, what was your deciding factor? Like, why did you pick another company? Because
Just
like
pulling that data out. I
I
love
just
it.
want to know, right? I want to know if like, did my salesperson short the appointment? Did we not do everything we could? Was our price too high? And like it's a tough game to play because you, I don't care where you are in your company's evolution, right? There's
Mhm.
always going to be somebody more expensive than you, and there's always going to be somebody cheaper than you. And I mean, it's the way
My
it is.
favorite line so far.
If
My
I,
favorite
I
line
mean,
so far.
I have 3 or 4 companies around here that if I could follow them around every day and go behind them, that's what I would do. Because they're a great company, they build a great value, but they also price condition really well.
Mhm.
Because the prices are high. For our market, they're top of the notch. But we also have guys that are our competitors that are, you know, 15% lower than us, which is frustrating sometimes. But we can't operate our business based on what everybody else does. I mean, we
No, that's
can't.
real.
And I think that Clifton probably said it best. If you don't differentiate yourself when you go through the door, you make it about price. If you don't show somebody why they should hire you and why they should hire your company, because I mean, people buy from people. They don't buy from companies most of the time. They buy from the person. And if you don't go through the door and show them why you're different and why you're a better value, irregardless what that is, you make it about the price all the time. And that's
I love it.
that's the deals you're going to lose because it's not always about the number.
Every single time. Every
Yep.
single time. Otherwise, why are we doing what we're doing if we can't
Yeah, and I
dictate
think
the result? You know what I'm saying?
nope.
And dictating the result is not a race to the bottom. That's
No,
just it's a tough game to play.
no,
Okay, so
it is.
go ahead. Yeah. In 2010, your
Mhm.
partners left your business.
Yep.
How did you rebound from that breakup?
Well, it was like essentially starting over. Um, it was coming off of a '08, '09 into 10, right? So like '08,
Mhm.
'09 were horrible. At least for our business. Like, I transitioned early on. We built a lot of new construction houses.
Mhm.
I did remodeling when I was younger, and when we basically created this business in 2004, new houses were booming. Like we couldn't build one and get to the end of it without having it sold right when I broke ground or before or at some point early in the process, like it was sold.
Yeah.
And in '07, I kind of saw that landscape changing. And I said, I think we probably better get back to the roots of remodeling because I feel like that business is always solid, more solid than building new homes.
Mhm.
And at that point, like the lot prices had so when I bought my lot and built my first house in 2001, I paid $29,500 for that lot. In 2005, I was buying the same lots in my neighborhood for 100 grand. So, which is crazy, staggering expensive. So,
Yeah.
I kind of felt like that market was getting worn out. So we transitioned into home improvement. Um, my partners and I had a difference of how we thought things should run, and they wanted 100% subcontract model. They didn't want any employees, and really, just we didn't agree on how things were going to continue to move forward. So they left, and basically they bought me out of the other business that we were a part of, which was an electrical company, residential electrical, which I loved. I loved doing, by the way. I did love that work. But they, I just assumed if we can't be partners in one business, we're probably not going to be fit to be partners in another one.
Right.
So they left, they bought me out of that business and we parted ways. And then I pretty much started over in 10 as far as like what I thought my vision for the company was going to be. Cause now I had say and like 100% control on what I wanted to do. Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
handcuffed. So starting over was tough because, I remember like you just do what you need to do to survive. Like
Mhm.
you just have to do and keep going and keep getting jobs. And I mean, at that point, I was like, I was the guy that was selling the jobs. I was running the estimates. I was doing the accounting. I was answering the phone. I was I was the carpenter with another guy putting it in. So
Mhm.
you, you got to magnify yourself at some point, duplicate yourself and get other people around you. And I remember hiring my first person ever was going to do my accounting and answer the phones. So that was a relief because I think I told Luan when she came on, I had literally a Staples box on the floor with all the invoices with the check stub stapled to them,
Yeah.
and that was my filing cabinet. Like they were all in order of how I paid them, but like I mean, there was 6 or 8 months where I hadn't balanced the checkbook in QuickBooks because I didn't have time. I just when you're in that mode every day, like I know what's coming in and I know what's going out.
Yeah.
Um, so it was a relief to get somebody in there that started doing the books correctly, got my checkbooks balanced, and we got on the right track.
It sounds like, and your body language a little bit. It sounds like it was a little exciting to just start from scratch, have that autonomy, and know that it was all on you.
It was because like I had an idea of how things should run, and
Mhm.
like being focused on the customers and the end result, right? Because like my thing is the reason why we got in business is because like I'm at that point I'm an electrician, right?
Mhm.
I went through that in like I came out of school in 99. I did electrical trades until '04, right? I did electrical work 98, 99 all the way to '04. Um and we got into this business because we're wiring a ton of houses and these guys stink. Like stuff that they're turning out is just garbage, junk.
Yeah.
And I remember saying like we can do this much better and still make a good living at it. And so that's why I wanted to do it is, it's a I mean, I guess it's a pride thing. Like you want to do a good job,
Yeah. No, I
so
couldn't agree more, and I now know why Clifton brought us together for sure. There's a lot of alignment there because I made the same decision at the end of 22 to separate from. It wasn't partners. I mean, one of them was a partner, but it was mainly just leadership.
yep.
My key players in the company, and I walked away from the business altogether. Very, very similar to what you're saying. I wanted complete autonomy throughout the not me personally, but our company, complete autonomy from the sale to the customer experience, and they wanted to sub everything out and just rip the highest commission they could, you know. So,
I mean, it's a fine you walk a fine line
mhm,
trying to run a business, make decisions that are good for the business, but also make decisions that are fair and equitable for your customers. I mean, if you don't have customers, you don't have a business, period.
absolutely,
Um, and it still pains me to this day when we get a customer that we can't make happy. And unfortunately, over 20 years, I will say you get a little more used to having that happen. Like, you did everything that you could do and they're still not happy, then there's
yeah,
probably nothing more you could have done. And then what's really painful is the ones where they weren't happy and there's more you could have done.
hmm,
Those are the ones that suck because like somewhere along the lines, somebody failed. The whole team failed, one person failed, somebody failed. And it stinks because whether it's your fault or not, that person is probably not going to come back to you as a repeat customer, which stinks.
Right.
It's painful. So I kind of wear that, unfortunately, still heavy on the sleeve every day.
Hmm. Well, it's like,
So the things that we do or try to impact so that doesn't happen or continue to happen.
yeah, at that point, you're just minimizing damage pretty much and
Yep.
hoping you can pull out a 3-star maybe out of it. You know what I mean?
Well, it's true.
Okay.
I mean, yep.
So your sales process back then when you were starting everything on your own compared to now, have things changed? Are the principles still the same? I would imagine the systems have completely changed. Can you walk us
System
through
is,
that journey?
yeah, system is completely changed. I mean, I was the salesperson back then. Um, Look, I held my own. I used to sell based on information, right? The fact that I had very intricate knowledge of how this goes together. I was a very technical person, right?
Yeah.
And too technical a lot of times. Like, you it took me a long time to figure out when people start looking at you and they're looking through you, you've lost them. Like completely
Mhm.
lost them. So,
You can feel it too. You can
yeah.
feel their stare on the wall behind you.
Yeah, it's like it took me a little while to cue in on that, and then when I started selling more based on give them enough information so that they understand I know exactly what I'm talking about, but not try to dive completely down the rabbit hole, that's when I started selling much better. And being an advocate and, like one of my lines that I still use to this day with customers is like, listen, whether we work for you or not, whether we do this for you or not, my job is to give you the best opinion and the best information I can possibly give you to make that decision, whether that's us or somebody else.
Yeah.
And I think that rings true to a lot of people. Like my goal is to give you what my best advice is. And if we're the company for you, then great. If we're not, then I understand.
Hmm.
Um, Sales process back then, I didn't really have one. It was just give them the estimate and hopefully I get the job. And
Yeah.
I was really good at follow up. I was really good at follow up back then. Like, I remember getting told, like, I won, hey, we gave you the job because nobody else would even give us a quote. So, like, I remember just that was the thing is like, I got to turn the quote out, I got to get it done. And I was because I was stretched so thin then. Like, I was the email quote king. Like, I just email it to you.
Yeah.
I didn't have another way because I couldn't get back out there. I didn't have the time. So
Yeah.
when we changed over to, I think probably 6 years ago, I finally found a software that I was really happy with. We use a company called Leap.
Hmm.
Um, Digital contracts. That's what I was searching for is editable digital contracts that were easy to do. And it just so happened these guys do the full on estimating and contract situation. It's a lot of setup work, but it makes things repeatable and it makes you so you can hold your salespeople accountable because you know you know how you got to where you got to, which is we used to do it on Excel spreadsheets. I'm like, well, how did you come up with this number? And they're like, oh, well, like I did it on the Excel spreadsheet. I'm like, well, can you send that over to me so I can see it? You
Yeah.
know how hard that is?
Hmm.
So getting it into a centralized place where like I can just go pull the estimate up if I have a question, I can see what somebody did. So
Yeah.
um, and then we're actually kind of revamping our sales process right now. We just went on with a company called Engage. Um, they're a pretty I mean it's a pretty cool technology where you can design a sales process and you can look at based on the data points that they do, you can look at if your salespeople are going through that process, how much time they're spending in each part of it, and you can tell where they're shortcutting it.
I love that. Most of the time, that's a manual tracking system. I mean, granted, you can disposition along the way, but for
Yep.
the most part, that's a very manual tracking system. How has that been going? Or you're just getting enrolled in that?
So we're actually building out all the sales presentations right now. Our general manager, Jordan, is kind of took the lead on that one.
Okay.
He's got a much, I would say, a deeper sales background than I ever did. Like he was trained as a
Mhm.
salesperson, so like, and as a sales manager, so he knows the ins and the outs of what and how those guys think on a daily. So he took the lead on creating the engage presentations. We had a just a review call with him yesterday, and what he's got so far is phenomenal. Like I'm really looking forward to it. It integrates with Leap, so it can all live
Nice.
in one centralized location for those guys. But I'm excited about the actual reporting metric, like to be able to go back to this appointment and look at how this went, especially for like demo no sales. Like, hey, what happened? Oh, well, I can see right here where you spent like 13 minutes on this whole presentation and it should have been 30 or 20, whatever it is. Um, so just being able to see what happened and try to evaluate and improve based on that is very exciting.
Yeah, I think I've seen this before with a pool installation client of mine. One of his sales managers that he was bringing on was using the software before, and I remember it was a little pricey, but impactful, is what he said.
I think that in my opinion, I think anything you're going to invest in,
Hmm.
and that's the way you look at it, is for me, it's not something how much does it cost? Is like, all right, does the cost does the end ROI outweigh the cost?
Yeah.
And in this case, I think it 100% does because it does a lot of things. Like our salespeople that we have here now are well trained from a company, a much larger company, and I'm fortunate to have those guys. So
Hmm.
like the training, I didn't have to really do so much as far as I mean, they were trained, well trained sales guys. But for new people coming on, having a standardized way to do it is critical to onboarding more people and growing a team. If I mean, you can't just unfortunately like you learn from your mistakes and you just can't have everybody doing their own thing. It kind of
Yeah.
has to be like we have to have a way that we do it so that we can train it that way.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we talk about a lot on the show, and then with my clients, of course, is like, how do you know what to improve if everybody's doing something different? The data's lying to you if you're having a perception from one salesperson versus another because they're all doing different stuff. So
True.
the data's useless in terms of what works and what doesn't, you know?
I think everybody has their own way of selling.
Hmm.
You know, I have one guy here that runs a 20-30 minute appointment and is our top producer. And I have one guy that runs an hour and a half appointment. And like that's what we have to get kind of to a standard is like, and there's no rhyme the reason. Like the one guy that runs a 30-minute appointment is just a super likable guy, and I mean, so is the other one. He's a super likable guy. I
Right.
don't. We haven't figured out what the X factor is with the other one yet. It's just, I mean, it could be anything, but that's what we got to figure out is we got to tailor it down to where it's repeatable for multiple people.
I think there's talent and there's skill, right?
Yep.
Skill can be developed, skill can be scaled and grown and implemented across the company. But I'm of the mindset too, talent can too, if you reverse engineer it enough. If you have a mind that can watch a recording or uh, an audio of a salesperson and can reverse engineer it into a process or a system or a strategy, you know? And so I'm just a big proponent of exactly what you're talking about, where, hey, let's figure out what works for everybody. I'm just guessing here. The guy that takes an hour and a half, is his ticket price higher than the one that takes a shorter amount of time? I know the shorter amount of
Honestly,
time sells more.
they're about the same.
They're about
Uh,
the same.
yeah,
Dang.
last year, when I look at the data last year, the the one that took a half hour appointment, his closing percentage was higher
Yeah, of course.
and his ticket price was probably 200. His average sale was 200 bucks less
Okay.
um, than the other
Not
guy,
enough to.
but his volume was double.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So
Take that all day.
Yeah, I mean, it's like again, I haven't figured it out other than the fact that he's a likable guy. But getting somebody like that is getting somebody reined in like that to where now I'm now I'm trying to it's painful because now I'm trying to make them operate in our CRM like they never have. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to make sure they result these people and they do something with these people so that they always end up somewhere.
Yeah.
And um so that was what our meeting was about this morning is like, hey, we're going to walk this through and make sure I built this flow chart that I don't think is complicated at all. And,
Right.
but these guys seeing it for the first time or second time, they're like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm like, look, man, this is easy. You don't need to look at all these. You just figure out where you're like what situation you're in, and this is what you do.
Hmm.
Um,
Well,
so like that'll be the next 3 or 4 weeks in meetings, like, and I'm going back and monitoring appointments every day and trying to coach them through it. Like, hey, why did you do this? It probably should have been done like this. Why did you do that?
yeah.
So eventually, the pain will go away. It's just painful right now. I've always had a saying that anything you change inside your company, look for about 2 to 3 weeks of pain and people being angry about it. And then once they see the difference and understand that there's a reason and it's better, then
Hmm.
it subsides.
The ways that I head off that pain, if you will, are two of the ways that I always tell my clients when they're implementing, especially when they're implementing a new software or process or system. The first one is build it with them versus building it and then showing it to them, you know?
Yep.
And this is huge because and I do this now. Like as I implement sales programs in my clients' businesses, I'll go in and I'll pull, you know, the senior guy, the top producer, and maybe the tech savvy guy. They're all on the sales team. One of those is on all of your sales teams, right?
Yep.
I'll pull them all and I'll workshop a flow chart, like you just said, with them, you know. And what it does, and obviously the owner too. And what it does is it creates this holistic dynamic versus a one-sided push for this, and they become part of it. And now
Yep.
when you deliver the end product, it's something that we came up with and we're all on board with, you know. And then the second thing is like you said, if engage makes sense in terms of ROI, then why would you not do it? You know, if as long as the cost is exceeded by the benefit, right? And same thing with salespeople. You've got to figure out, all right, how by implementing this software, are we going to close 4% more, 5%, 6%, and then tie it to their personal sales from last year and
Yep.
then show them that number? You know what I'm saying? And so those are two ways that I really try to dial in new softwares. A lot of times when we implement them, we're just looking at the benefit to our staff and our admin team and our installers. You know what I'm saying? And that's the driving force why we want to bring in that software. And that's fine. I mean, I'm all about making the people that make the wheels turns jobs easier.
Yep.
But we've also got to figure out a way to give it to our salespeople so they see the benefit too. You know, I think that's a big part of that.
And there's a fine line between, like, I don't want my salespeople, all honesty, I don't want them spending a ton of time
Right.
doing tasks that aren't revenue generating for the company and for them. But
Hmm.
there are certain tasks, like, you got to be really careful when you say that because there are certain tasks that go along with that job that just have to get done either way.
Yeah.
And, like, the one of the guys told me that his old company, they never made them work inside a CRM ever. Like when they ran an appointment, they would just call in and tell somebody in the office what happened, and they would do all the resulting and all that stuff for them. And I'm like, well, man, that sounds like you're putting a ton of work like on somebody else for like these are
Yeah.
these are people you're trying to help, and we're trying to help as a company. So
Yeah.
um, I I always have one of those things where when I roll something out like this is our engage process, right? We went to a
Mhm.
show, Certainteed, and Certainteed was sponsoring the show, and then they had Engage there as one of their presenters.
Yeah.
And those guys actually came. My salespeople came to me and said, "Hey, we ought to look at that. That's really cool." So like
That's nice.
they were
Yeah.
kind of already bought into it because they're the ones that came and got me, and then I went and sat through the demo.
Sweet.
So, but I always have a saying, like when you try to do something that's against the grain or against what you've been doing, um,
Mhm.
I kind of push a little bit and then I let off, and then I try to move it a little bit more and I let off. So I never try to just push it all at one time because that's going to like break something.
Oh, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
try to say to myself, okay, over the next 4 to 6 weeks, I need to do this, and whether it's on purpose or not, like I try to tell myself, like, all right, don't push too hard because this is a big change for these guys. They've been doing it this way, and now you're asking them to do it a completely different way. So like it's just like eventually I know they'll get in the procedure to do it the way that I'm asking. So
Heck yeah.
it's I just try to put myself in their shoes and be like, man, I've been doing it this way for all this time. Now I got to do it this way. So
So I'm interested in perspective from you because I'm entering the coaching space. I've been a consultant for 2 years now,
yep.
and I was building sales teams for 13 years before that, and now I'm entering the coaching space. Me and Mike have had a relationship for 3 years, and he has proposed the idea before, and then last year he finally reached out and offered it, and I accepted. And being in the spaces that I am, because I'm in a few masterminds, I have my own coach. And I started that as a business owner myself. What what are your thoughts on coaches and consultants in general? I'm sure you see a lot of the noise out there and stuff like that. So, I guess the first question would be, how do you avoid the noise? And then the second question is, what has coaching done for you?
So I joined in all transparency, I joined Apex at one point, which is where I met Mike.
Okay.
Um literally I joined in January of 21, I think 2021.
Hmm.
And February I went to the first meetup, right? And Mike was there and I watched
What
him speak.
level? Client Friday?
I was in entrepreneurs.
Oh, entrepreneurs. Okay. Gotcha.
Yep. And I watched Mike speak on stage for the first time. And I don't know, if it was like whatever he was saying resonated with me because like it was truthful. And I could tell that the message that he was putting out there wasn't fake. And I've just I've had a good read of character for a long time since I was young on most
Mhm.
people. Like, I get fooled, like some people fool me, but for the most part, I'm a pretty good judge of character and I can read people. And I just felt like what he was saying was very truthful. And it's exactly what I was looking for at that exact moment in time. And I literally, when I went back to my hotel room that night, I literally messaged him on Instagram and said, "Hey, I saw your post. I'd really like to talk to you." Um, we jumped on. I think literally 3 or 4 days later, we jumped on a Zoom call, and I remember his words to me were, we talked for about a half hour, and
Mhm.
he said to me, "Look, here's how much it costs. I'm going to be your coach, and if you pay me this amount of money, I'm going to change your fucking life." And little did I know, like that that would 100% be the case. And the issue is you have to have enough, because the things that we started changing were immediately painful and they felt like they were breaking. So you you have to know that like it's good and it's gonna be painful. So like the issue is we uncovered a lot of things that were problems that like I didn't even realize that were problems. They were just kinda on cruise control, and, like, when I started looking at them, like, "Holy shit, how come I didn't see that?"
Mhm.
And so, like, I would say from the time that I went on with Mike until right now, the pain level has been, like, extremely painful for, like, the whole entire time because changing and evolving and trying to do better and changing things that you've done for a certain, like for a long time, a certain way, and changing those processes is tough. But like in my mind, looking forward, I'm like, this is 100% worth it. Like, no time did I ever think to myself, like, shit, this isn't worth it. So, like, I would say in coaching in general, if you can afford one, try to have one at whatever
Mhm.
level that is.
Right.
Because even in general, I mean, it's just good to have somebody to talk to. Like,
That's real.
just walking problems out and like, getting advice on like, hey, how should I handle this? Because like nobody has all the answers.
Yeah.
And as many things that I've seen and done in 20 years, I'm going to tell you, there's been some stuff this past 2 years that I've never seen and never done, and I've had to, like we've had to figure it out.
Hmm.
And Mike and Clifton, um, Sam, all those guys, like I had more interactions, a lot of interaction with Mike. He was my coach for the better part of the past couple of years,
Yeah.
and I've actually switched over to Clifton because I like Clifton's energy. I said, hey Mike, like, is Clifton really that happy of a guy?
Dude, it's
He,
crazy. I love
like,
it though. Like I
yeah, me
need that in
too.
my life.
Like, and I'm
He's
like,
he's he's our coaching director. You
yeah,
know what I'm saying? So he's
yep.
like perfect for that position.
And I'm like, and I said, so there was a part of like Clifton that, like I needed to kind of revamp like our sales process and like our customer focus and things like that. And that's Clifton's area of expertise, right? So I actually asked Mike if I said, hey, I don't want to like lose my spot with you, but like I really like Clifton. And we actually did like an experimental program with them this year where it was kind of like Nate and Clifton and
Hmm.
Mike, and Dave Owens. So
Hmm.
it was kind of like I had
You're a
different people
board.
on our staff dealing with different people, and I would deal with them too. So
Oh,
it was
okay. I
pretty
see.
it was pretty nice.
Yeah.
It was really neat because like then I'm trying to elevate people in my team too.
Hmm.
Um, but you know, coaching in general is, from what I've seen, is a pretty dirty game
Yeah.
because there's a ton of people out there that will take your money and offer no value.
Hmm.
And I was very, very, very fortunate to the first coach I ever had was probably one, I mean, in my opinion, one of the most honest and caring people that I've probably ever seen on that space because like he generally cares. I mean, he's telling you the truth. He is that he is that guy. The guy that you see on Instagram and Facebook and that's who you got. He's not a fake guy.
Yeah.
Um, which I like a lot.
No, it's a you're 100% right. I remember after our first few conversations and I had dinner with him and everything. I was like, I asked him, I was like, hey, I'm a salesman. You know what I mean? I've been training salespeople my whole life. Um, when's this thing gonna come down? You know what I mean? And what this thing was not a thing at all. It's
Nope.
just who he is. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And a lot of people can't handle. Like I could handle it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? But I knew something was there to where it was like he just doesn't like the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't sugarcoat things and then he doesn't waste his time. So you
He
know if he's spending time with you, man, he wants to be there,
Yep.
you
He
know,
has
and that is a superpower in
unwavering
itself.
it's an unwavering standard, right?
Mhm.
If it's here, like will not operate down here. Period. It's either going to
Yeah.
be here or above that. Um, and it's actually really interesting to watch because like a lot of people don't operate like that. I'm guilty of it still to
Yeah,
this day. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, it's like sometimes when there's a when there's an obstacle in the way, I sometimes don't crash right through it, right?
Mhm.
Maybe I'll navigate around it. Um, and sometimes that's the best approach in my opinion. And then sometimes, you just got to crash through that thing and get it over with. which sucks because that's painful too in a lot of ways.
There's two things that you said in this answer that really stood out to me. The first one is you talked a lot more about it being painful and the process and everything than you did about the result. I don't even think you really said a result, which I love because I mean, think about it. If someone's giving a testimony, and we like to reinforce our own decisions. We like to
Sure.
say, "Oh, because I hired Mike, I'm doing double my business or X, Y, and Z or whatever the case is." That way everybody knows that I make smart decisions. You know what I'm saying? And you see it
Right.
happen all the time. And especially when you know the person and you're like, no, you didn't. You know what I'm saying? Like, or hey, that's because it went from 19 to 21. Everybody doubled their business. You know what I mean? Like, come on. And so I love that you said that though, because
It,
that's where
it
real
allowed,
change happens is in that pain.
well, it
And
is.
in
It allowed me to
and
understand too what I'm looking for in other leaders that I need to surround me with. And it allowed me to say, hey, I I was really bad at not delegating and like, screw it, I'll just do it myself. And there there's still things that I am like that with.
Mhm,
But I am much better at delegating certain things now because I know that the my time spent on it is not there's no ROI in that, and I have
right,
somebody else that I can give that to. And that's one thing that they really helped me with, um, Mike specifically, and just knowing the qualities of other leaders that we need to bring in and put in place, um, was a huge help. Or
that's bad.
I probably wouldn't have done
Well,
it.
and I think my goal as a coach is gonna be for my client to walk in their house at 5:30 and be able to leave the business at the office, be able to go to more baseball games, be able to be more present with their wife and have a more engaging relationship. And if it's their goal to have a more engaging relationship with God, and while the money part is important and the growth part, all that is important, you're going to reach a certain point where you can only strong arm it for so long. So you're going to have to be growing your people. But in doing that, you've got to give them the rope. You know what I'm saying? You got to give them the space to perform. And so that means, for me, it was going from 2014, 60, 70 hours to 2017, 15 hours a week. My business was cut in half, but I was making the same profit.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly. And
Not
so
much
to
wrong with that
me, that would be
one.
I would love that so much more than the business owner that's doing, working 60 hours a week, continuing to work 60 hours a week, but his business doubled. You know what I'm saying? Like
Well, and
there's
I,
very
I
little.
I'm learning, evolving and learning every day. And one of the things that I was highly driven on, right, in 2020, 21, 22, 23 is revenue.
Mhm.
And I think that you have to have, if you want to grow and you want to grow your revenue, great.
Right.
But my advice to every single business owner is don't sacrifice the margin at what you're doing it at. Like, make sure you're doing it for the right margins to support the company that you're building. Because right now, I would take hey, would you rather do $15 million at the wrong margin, or would you rather do 10 million at the right margin? And I'm going to say I'd rather do 10 million at the right margin every day of the week. And you sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees, if
Mhm.
that makes sense. Because everybody's like, a lot of people are driven on that revenue number. Like,
Yeah.
I I want to be driven on profit dollar number. And something interesting you said about time and how much time you're working.
Mhm.
What I've seen is that there'll be ebbs and flows in your business
Yeah.
where when it needs you, you better be prepared to put it in. And when it gives to you, you take it. You take the time that it gives to you when you can. Um, the mistake I made is that sometimes the time that you think it gave you is you might have took too much and you didn't pay attention to something,
I've
and then
done that. Yeah.
and then you're like, damn it, like I was doing this while I wasn't paying attention to this. And like I wear that I wear that pretty heavy,
Yeah.
because like if there's a failure, right? I mean, my GM and I, Jordan, talk about it every day. If somebody fails on the team, or like we fail as a team. So like there's only one dude sitting at the top of the table, or the head of the table, and that's me. So like if we fail, like it comes back to me somewhere. Um and I got to make a change and say, all right, look guys, we can't do this like this. We got to do it like this, and this is why. Um and I feel like our leadership team really, really, really embraces that. Like sometimes through like people not inside that team, like like our installers or like our office personnel, it's difficult and painful, and we get a lot of pushback on some things. But at the end of the day, like we know as a leadership group why we're doing this, and this is the best move for the company, the customers, and the employees. If because like if I don't have good employees and good customers, like we don't have a business. Period. So um, that's that's my thought and focus really is like just improving the process and um, giving the business what it needs when it asks. And right now, we're in a, I mean, we're in a market where it is a tough, tough, tough market right now. We went from, we went from like guys just writing business every day of the week because it was there
Yeah.
to like, we're going to work for it now.
Mm-hmm.
And, the climate has changed. So sometimes what I call is you got buckle the chin strap, put the helmet on, buckle the chin strap. It's time to work.
Yeah.
So right now I was literally in my office yesterday morning at 7:30, and I left there last night at 10:45. And not what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
but it required that of me yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then hopefully I have a scheduled day off on Friday. So like I'm I'm going to be off on
We'll
Friday.
see.
Yeah. Hopefully I'm going to be off on Friday. So we'll see. But
No, I love it. I mean, and just to illustrate your point a little more and then lead into the next question. Um, I started at 6:30 in the morning yesterday. I had a meeting to get ready for at 8, and then worked all day until about 4:15, got my boys ready for baseball tryouts. And then in my infinite wisdom volunteered to coach. And then came back, put them to bed, and then had another couple of calls because I coached some salespeople directly.
yep.
And then wrapped it all up. But sometimes it's just like that, you know. But
It is.
again, to your point and to what you said, like sometimes you just have to put in that work. But when you do put in that work, it's got to be communicated to the people that matter most, so they know what's going on and they're part of the solution versus just being in the dark and wondering why you're not showing up. You know what I mean?
That is one thing that I continually have to improve on, because I will tell you I am the worst person at that. Like
Hmm.
when when the company is like, for me, this company is me, right? When
Yeah.
people say the name, like they say Jason, for most people that know me. And so like I look at that, like when it needs blood, I got to give it blood. And but I also have to, like you're right, you have to communicate that, like, hey, look, I'm not going to be I'm going to be late. Like I've got to get this stuff done. I have a deadline, or
Hmm.
there's something going on and I got to get this done. The worst thing I would tell you is to do what I did for years and just not communicate and just say I'm going to be late, and not explain and have them bought into that.
I couldn't agree more.
Yep.
Man, Jason, this has been a fantastic episode. If I didn't have a 10:30 right now, I would
Yeah,
keep this
man.
rolling. It's been awesome, man. But thank you so much for coming on, just pouring into our listeners. And I couldn't have loved the conversation more. It was amazing. Thank you so
Me too. It
much.
was awesome meeting you. It's the first time we've ever met,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you had me on. It was my pleasure. Like I said, my second podcast ever, and I love it. So it's great. I mean, at some point I'd like to give back to 20 years of knowledge. Like if I can help somebody not step in the same pile of crap that I stepped in a couple times, like I'm always glad to do so.
Sounds like a legacy to me, brother. Thanks
All right, man.
again.
All right, thank you.